are using. We don't know that we are using AI. Sometimes it's because it's not explicitly mentioned, or sometimes it's because, hey, it is something that we have come to sort of accept without batting an eye. For example, is a chatbot. Chatbot is something that is programmed to kind of address our questions, address our needs, and ideally resolve those issues. Now, every now and then, it'll say, "Okay, well, let me connect you with a person if necessary." But the chatbot itself is fully functional AI. I was, for instance, over this past weekend, I had a travel issue where I had a 5 hour delay on my connecting flight. And my airline was very diligent about one, sending text confirmation or text updates actually and saying, hey, here's what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. Would you like to make alternate arrangements? If so, please click here. And it was allowing AI to kind of take the lead on that, recognizing the real-time updates, recognizing its real-time inventory, recognizing the need to cater not just to the needs of those frequent flyers who, not me, who have the higher status and should get priority, but also those folks like me who were connecting. It's one thing if they say, hey, your flight's delayed and you're leaving from your home. Okay, well, you don't need a hotel or anything along those lines. Another example is a phone tree. So it is imperative, I would say, nowadays for any well-organized business to have a phone tree because it is quite honestly impossible to fully staff via humans and have the opportunity to really ask to be able to direct all of the questions, all the queries that are out there. We would love sometimes to talk to a human, and sometimes we get to it. Sometimes it's by pressing zero repeatedly in a fit of rage. Sometimes it's just by diligently waiting until the phone tree kind of runs out of options and says, okay, we'll connect you. I mentioned rideshare. Rideshare is using AI in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, it's triangulating your location, your desired destination, as well as the drivers who are nearby. Additionally, it provides a real-time update, and that is shared as well with ordering food. It's not just saying, oh, okay, you ordered from this place, it's going to be there in 20 minutes. It's recognizing that there need to be updates to that scenario as particular milestones are met. So the food is ready, the food is picked up, the person's driving, et cetera, et cetera. And lastly, of course, the one we all know about is Amazon, using Amazon. It may not be immediately evident, but if you have looked at the user reviews for products, depending on the product, depending on the maker, depending on the vendor, you might see hundreds of thousands of reviews. So Amazon AI is now doing a pretty good job to provide real-time snippets into the feedback and into the product recommendations and reviews. It's not just telling you, hey, here's 100,000, go read them. It'll do the calculation saying how many people say this, how many people say that. The people who say this also are concerned about that, et cetera, et cetera. So it's everywhere. And I gotta say, personally, I am not a super fan, and by that I mean somebody who is a zealot about artificial intelligence. I am not a sci-fi person. I am not somebody who is saying, okay, Terminator is going to come true and all those things. However, I am somebody who, over the last 6 months, has really dipped not just a toe, but both feet, and I would say down to my knee, perhaps, of trying out these AI elements. By the way, at any point, just raise your hand, ask questions, etc. Okay. So today we're really talking about AI from a professional setting. And if you ever have experienced one of these, you probably could benefit from AI. So if you've ever been pressed for time and you're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do in say 60 minutes when in reality I probably have 2 hours worth of work. Or goodness, this looks good, but I'm tired. I would like somebody to kind of proofread it. I would like somebody to tell me if the particular concept, the particular idea that I'm espousing kind of flows. Is this something that people can kind of tell, or am I perhaps making it a little bit more convoluted? If you've ever wanted to practice a speech, AI can not only record it, but do counts of how many awkward pauses, how many ums, how many filler phrases, how many repeated words, all that kind of good stuff. And also, it can actually take a look at your argument. So let's say that you're advocating for something or advocating against something. It can really help with that devil's advocacy role by looking at the strength of your argument and seeking weaknesses or seeking perhaps counter arguments that will help you in the long run by strengthening your argument. And that is something that I personally have done a great amount of time. And I'm a big fan of risk management, but sometimes I wonder, hey, have I sufficiently looked at the strengths, opportunities, risks, opportunities, et cetera? And AI can do a terrific job there. As Travis mentioned, sometimes it doesn't do a good enough job, and that is a combination of one, how we're phrasing it. And that also happens to humans, right? Sometimes we'll say, okay, let me restate that, or in other words, et cetera, et cetera. Two, it will also depend on what kind of model it has been trained on, what kind of data it received to be trained. And three, remember that it's not just about providing the context, but also providing the expectations. And later on, as we talk about how to set up some prompts, that'll be explained in a clear way. When it comes to AI for businesses or business professional settings, here's the thing that I would like you to ask yourself. If you had a better tool for a job than the tools that you currently have, wouldn't you use it? Wouldn't you say, let me see what's in it for me? Wouldn't you try to figure out, hey, is there a benefit to it? Ultimately, and again, depending on the industry, depending on kind of what you're doing, you might end up saying it's beneficial, or you might say it's more problems that it's worth. Chances are that you might find some people who are going to advocate for it and really tout it. And maybe, as they say, mileage may vary. So you take a look at yours and you say, well, yeah, it's helpful, but it's not as much as I think it could be, or as I think it's been said to me, or perhaps in that industry or that industry. Second, and Steve and Travis mentioned about this, their particular employer, VSP, does have a deployment going on of AI. I work for CVS Health, and we actually have two tools that we use. The first one is Microsoft Copilot, and we'll talk about that one in a little bit. And the second one is a homegrown Chat GPT-like clone. Both are really good. Both have strengths and weaknesses. Both have usage cases that make a little bit more sense than others. But the takeaway here is that chances are your organization, independent of whether it's small or large, government or education or private or nonprofit, public company or private company, chances are there is something going on when it comes to kicking the tires with AI. And lastly, I mentioned this, there is wisdom in crowds. And if you're not familiar with that concept, it stems from a turn of the century, last century, exercise in which rather than guess how much a prize-winning bull weighed, an economist actually decided to go ahead and ask almost 1,000 people to provide their guesses. Now, individually, the guesses were all over the place, but collectively, the average was within 1 pound of the actual weight of the animal. So I mention this because with ChatGPT, you are leveraging the training data set that has been used for that particular query that you're performing. This gentleman here, he is the head of NVIDIA. His name is Jensen Huang. This quote is attributed to him. If you look around, there might be some other people who say something similar, But it's a really good takeaway. And the fear has always been, oh my goodness, AI is going to take my job. AI is going to replace jobs. We're doomed. And in reality, what's much more likely is that somebody might take your job. Somebody might surpass your job. Somebody might beat you out for a position because they are using AI and you're not. So that is, again, not to bring a picture of doom and gloom, but rather highlight the fact that this augments our skill set, this augments our human intelligence, and this can really help us make a better work better and kind of get more efficient results, more thorough results, provided that we take a look at the output that AI provides. I'm going to pause here for a second and take a sip of water. But any questions so far? Okay. So I had written down a whole bunch of different use cases, and just before this meeting, I kind of thought, hey, I'm probably not going to have time to go through them all, so I'm going to work on a few and kind of highlight this. Show of hands again, how many of you are familiar with 5 why analysis? Okay, I see Steve, I see Travis, I see Timothy, or actually, Rosetta.
I learned
Okay.
it from you, Tony.
Exactly. Well, I was going to say, I don't want to toot my own horn, right? But toot toot. But Steve, why don't you, while I get a sip of water, why don't you tell us what 5 why is?
Essentially, it's a better way of getting to the root cause of an issue.
You can you can demonstrate it, Steve, and say, "Why, Tony?"
Yeah.
And then Tony will give you an answer, and in that answer there'll be another "Why, Tony?"
Right.
And eventually you'll find out why he's asking that question.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, you can also do this by just having a toddler nearby, but if you are all out of toddlers, you might need a little bit of an easier thing. So here's an example of if you, and for the next handful of slides, this is completely agnostic of which AI model, okay? But you would tell the AI client, hey, I need to determine the root cause or causes for, and in this example, software compatibility issue between Rev 5.6 of whatever the app name is that you're working, and iOS versions 13, 14, and 15. Help me ideate on possible root causes by formulating why. Why questions using the 5 why method from Six Sigma. You'll note that on this prompt, and the prompt itself is not too long, right? I could make it a little bit longer if I wanted to, but this is going to likely be sufficient for the client, the AI client, to start generating some content. Now, I am explaining to it that I need to know this because I'm having a software compatibility issue, and I'm giving it more granularity by telling it, look, I'm using this rev, and I'm using these versions, or trying to look into these versions of the operating system. I could also ask AI to play a particular role. So for example, I could say, I am a product manager skilled in this language and that language of coding. You, meaning the AI, you are a engineer with 30 years of worth of experience who has seen various technology evolutions, blah, 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 blah. That's going to help the AI get a better handle on how deeply and how thoroughly to go ahead and understand the information that it is being requested. Okay, that's one. Number two, and I use this one all the time. I loved graphical representations. I'm constantly looking at infographics. I'm constantly tinkering with graphs. I'm constantly asking my peers for their opinion. I could just ask AI, help me simplify this graph. And at that point, you would upload a graph. Maybe you upload the file that you're working on. Maybe it's a graph that you have on a website and you just point it to it. And in this case, look at the specifics that I'm giving. I would like the colors to contrast properly. be viewable to users with color blindness, and remove any elements that may feel overly busy. And the second paragraph provides AI with the usage model for my audience. Because ultimately, whenever you're doing a presentation or you're doing something along those lines, you want to take a look at the audience. You want to view it from their perspective. So in this case, I say, I will share this being the graph, on a 60-inch screen in a small room with 8 attendees. Remote viewers will be using laptops, desktops, tablets, and phones. And note how I am providing the particular screen sizes that those folks will be having. Now, I'm making this up, right? I don't know whether all of my attendees, remote attendees, are going to have desktops with, all of the attendees who are using desktops are going to have 30-inch monitors. Maybe they'll have 60-inch monitors. Maybe they'll have 20-inch monitors. But I'm providing the AI with this detail so that it looks and says, okay, it may be good here, but it may not be good there. The next one is, bear with me, I'm just plugging in my phone so that I'm near the battery. The next one is what we like to call a stress test. So let's say that I am planning a 3-day conference for my customers. I would like to validate which 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, work best and have the fewest conflicts for attendees. Conference would be held in the Las Vegas Convention Center. I would like to ... avoid major sporting events, that should say concerts, and industry fairs. Now, note how I highlight 3 days and I give the AI very specific 3-day buckets. I don't say any 3 days because in this case, I am envisioning that I would not like an event, a conference that goes over the weekend. It may be that for your own particular use model, you're okay with having something over the weekend. But in this scenario, I'm saying, hey, don't do that one. This one's also pretty good. It's an anti-solution. So this is when you're thinking of a product, an idea, a process, and you're trying to figure out what would cause it not to work well. So you can come up with, quote, an anti-solution, which is just think of the worst possible product or the worst possible attributes, the worst possible elements, and have AI list those. So I will tell you that if the makers of pod detergents had used this 10 years ago or 15 years ago, however long it was, chances are they would have thought, maybe making this in bright colors that look like candy is probably not the best idea. So in this scenario, I am saying I am developing a toy line that caters to toddlers. The toy is a family of unicorns, of shy unicorns that can be seen only by toddlers, not adults or older kids. Help me devise a name for the toy line and logo. Think of horrible ideas and explain why they are not good so I can focus on not going down those paths. Kindly ensure the name and logo are easily translatable to the top 20 languages spoken in the world and are not offensive. And another one that's pretty good is, with professional development. So much like AI therapists are very good at kind of getting a sense of how to cheer one up or how to help somebody with a pep talk or anything along those lines, you can also ask AI to help you with professional development. In this scenario, I'm asking you are a career coach with experience helping mid-career professionals ponder their 1, 3-year, and 5-year plans. Using my resume, which I uploaded, help me create my annual performance review. For each section, use the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. Or you can also use it to apply for a job. In this case, I tell it, hey, I am applying for this job, and I can either upload the job description or upload it or paste it. Help me write a cover letter, leverage my strength in two areas and offer suggestions on how to overcome my lack of something else. Make the letter formal, no more than 3 paragraphs, and readable by someone with a 10th grade education. Which, by the way, that's something else that you can do. You can upload a document and say, hey, my target audience has a 10th grade reading comprehension level. Make suggestions to either make it easier or make it harder. So those are a bunch of different usage models. Now, ultimately, keep in mind that the AI application will have been trained on data that can be either structured or unstructured. Structured data, as the name implies, has some sort of guide to it. It might be organized, it might have good columns, descriptors, it's easily searchable, et cetera, whereas unstructured is the complete opposite. One thing that AI can also help you with is if you have a large data set that has elements of both, it can help provide you with suggestions to make your unstructured data a little bit easier. So for example, let's say that it just has a column that has the numerical value of the second in each day. And each day has 60 times 60 times 24 seconds, right? 24 hours, 60 minutes per hour, 60 seconds per minute. You can then ask AI, hey, go ahead and change that particular marker to the actual spelled out time, say 9:18:25 or anything along those lines. So that's another usage of AI, not just to help you pair through the data, but also kind of prep the data and format this. I'm going to switch to my other machine because what I want to do now is cover at least 3 of these AI clients. I'm going to begin with Chat PDF, then I'll go with Copilot, and last I'll go with Poe. So I am going to switch my screen, so bear with me. You should not be seeing anything right now. Let me know if that is indeed the case.
You are correct.
Okay, so now I am going to share my screen. Okay. I am going to start with Chat PDF. It's loading. So Chat PDF, as the name implies, really helps with what is truly one of the biggest document standards out there for computer files. When you think of PDF, portable document format created by Adobe more than 30 years ago, it's hard to find a day in which we don't come across something in a PDF. It might be a document for us to read, it might be a document for us to sign, it might be an export of data, et cetera, et cetera. So what we have, and hold on, see why it's not loading. So what we would have with Chat PDF is a very simple window. You can see how it says upload PDF. So it knows that in order for it to generate content, it needs to receive a file. We would just upload a PDF. In this case, I already did something like this. So I am going to showcase what results I got. First one is a document that I uploaded that is actually a book. and the book is called The Art of Thinking Clearly. Now, note that I didn't ask ChatPDF for anything. It just automatically said, hey, you uploaded this. Let me tell you about it. So it gives a short summary. In this case, it's giving me a couple lines and a couple of bullet points. And then it kind of prompts me to say, what would you like to do? It is using it's using its training module to kind of highlight, hey, here's the typical questions that it can expect based on the language, the form, the content, etc. Now contrast that to this other example where I uploaded a document called the 2025 top 100 Gen I usage cases. I went ahead and asked it to summarize this report. And it's giving me a summary there. It's setting up an introduction and all the different settings. I will say that there's a couple of usage models. There's, like I know, there's more than 100. It is bundling them into particular buckets. So you see how, for instance, there's fun and nonsense. There's also improved code. There's creativity. So it looked at the 100 plus and said, well, these kind of share similar traits, so I'm going to bundle them as the case may be. I scroll down to go to the next question that I asked it. Where now I say, hey, which ones of these experience the largest growth year on year? Now, I could have easily just, of course, read the document. But again, it's a long document. And maybe it has the data, but it doesn't have it in a neat, easy to find graph. Or maybe it's written on the first paragraph of one example and then in the third paragraph of the other. So it would be cumbersome and it would take time. Here, it just goes ahead and says, let me take a look at that. And it tells you what to do, or it tells you which ones are the ones that have the biggest growth. Another example here is I'm particularly interested in personal well-being. So I want to find out how are people using that. And it's giving me a deeper view onto that. Then I present something that I'm kind of throwing in a curveball. I'm saying, why should I care about these things if I work in healthcare? I don't recall. Let's assume that I had not read the document. It may not have any particular examples about healthcare. So I'm personally saying, well, that's where I work. Tell me about it. And it's coming up with ideas that are both written in the document as well as understanding what the knowledge base of AI out there for healthcare has found. Here's a good one where I ask, hey, I have a teenage daughter. Are there any use cases that I should ask her or suggest that she explore, or any ones that she should stay away from? So it knows that a teenage daughter is probably in school, which is right. In this case, my daughter just is about to go into her second year at college. So it's able to tell me, here's what you should be doing, but here's what she should not be doing. And look at number 2, very interesting. It says, hey, therapy and emotional support. It's good, but don't sort of rely on it by itself. And then here's one that's an example for my class as I teach at UC Davis and UCLA. And I have seen that AI can really get a lot of people nervous. A lot of people might be using it for good purposes and also for bad purposes. So any usage models I should be concerned about when it comes to plagiarism and academic dishonesty. It tells me the stuff to be concerned about. And look how, for example, concerns to be aware of, it has unintentional plagiarism. So there, it's not necessarily assuming the worst in people, but kind of highlighting that, hey, chances are people could come up with the same argument or the same sentence in completely isolated instances. And just to get here, for example, I asked it for an Excel version of the report, and then it fires back like, well, tell me a little bit more. Tell me what you would like in it. Here's if I wanted it formatted. And here's an interesting one where I actually say, hey, can you provide this report to me in Spanish? Now I speak Spanish, so I can validate the response. And it did a terrific job of giving me the background on that. Also, I asked, hey, can you help me with a mnemonic device to understand the main points? And it does here in Spanish. It still the last thing I asked, remember, was in Spanish. So it still assumes that I still want to continue in Spanish. So that is Chat PDF. It's a lot of fun to play with because most of us have any sort of PDF documents laying around, and we can get a good perspective of what it does say it shouldn't say. The next one is going to be Poe, P-O-E. And Poe is an app that actually provides a conduit into dozens of AI clients. So it has, quote, official bots, and it has subsections on apps, image generation, et cetera, et cetera. So whereas traditionally you would go, just like I did with Chat PDF or on Copilot or ChatGPT, here it's able to, one, ask me which bot I would like to use, and it helps me guide and understand which is the best bot for the question, but also compare the results for each. So let's say that I wanted image creation. I see how it's showing me all these different things. And some of them are more on the professional side. So Phoenix 1.0, that looks pretty cool, huh? High fidelity image, blah, 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 blah. And then there's something like the GPT image, which is a little bit of the more traditional. So for example, try saying, it's asking me if I want to subscribe, but I don't want to subscribe. So Poe does have, and note how, again, I mentioned image is something that takes a lot of computing power. So it is saying, hey, this is going to take more points that you have. And the points in this case would be like a credit for the computing power. I could also ask it to generate audio if I wanted, or I could ask it to analyze the text. So again, a good example, let's say that I write something and I'm concerned that, hey, maybe the language is too sophisticated. I can ask one of these things. A great usage model as well for all of us when we download an app or we sign up for something, there's that good old terms and conditions or user license requirement. You can copy and paste that, or you can link it and ask your AI tool, hey, can you explain this to me in plain English? Can you tell me if there's any clauses or any elements that I should be concerned about? Okay. And then the last one that I wanted to cover is Copilot. Now, I have two instances of Copilot on my phone. I have the work Copilot, and I have the Copilot that I get because I'm an Office 365 subscriber. The main difference between those is that your work Copilot is going to have access to information from your work account. So for example, if I wanted to know, hey, I have a meeting next week with stakeholder 1 and stakeholder 2, and I wanted to get a good sense of what challenges have I had with those people over the last couple of years, I could ask Copilot to scan through my email, scan through my OneDrive, scan through my instant message, and tell me what challenges we might have had and how did we go about resolving them. When you have a work copilot, you still have the quote other one. And by that, I mean, it can search on the web. So if I wanted to ask it to draw an image of a cat doing this or doing that, it would be able to do it independent of whether it's the work or the personal copilot. Gave you instances here, give you a couple of examples. I wanted to ask myself, I was working on my career development, and I asked for it. I'm going to scroll the way up. I asked it, I'm at a career crossroads, help me with some reflective questions. I also, on my work one, asked it to please go ahead and help me work on my review. So get the perspective of what the review needed to be written like and help me with that. Another example here with Copilot. As I mentioned, I teach a class and I wanted it to critique my syllabus, make sure that it is as clear as I think it is. And I also went ahead and asked it to criticize some of the instructions that I provide in assignments to really make sure that, once again, the students are understanding it the way that it's implied to be. Asked it, this was a big failure. Let me tell you this one. I have a glamour shot, if you would. My picture from my headshot was taken 10 years ago. And while I am still as good looking as ever, I do have a lot of gray hair. So I asked it to go ahead and take a look at, change it based on the fact that this is 10 years ago or 9 years ago. And the pictures were a little cartoony. It was making me look like an anime character. So there was a little bit of a fail. Now, there probably are better apps out there to do that. And Copilot was struggling a little bit. I also, this is a wonderful one. I wanted to go ahead and create some pictures. I had a devil of a time with my cat lab for about a month. I could get it into its carrier to go to the cat that happened. So cat broke the carrier and I had to figure out what to do. So I went ahead and just put the cat in a cooler and kept it open on top. So I asked for to create a picture and look what GPT said in Copilot. Here comes your feisty feline moment, complete with cooler chaos. And I see it on my screen, but it doesn't look like it's, yeah, there we go. So can you spot what's wrong with that picture?
The lid on the cooler looks a little strange.
Besides the 3 hands.
3 hands, right? So this is a very bizarre one because GPT should be smart enough, Copilot should be smart enough to say that there are no humans with 3 hands. But it nevertheless sort of failed that. Chances are that it was thinking, okay, you are trying to put Kitty in the cooler. Kitty doesn't like it and probably squirming. So what are you going to do? So yeah, if you were speeding through a video, it would look like I have 3 hands because I'm trying to put them in. But in reality, we all know that I only have 2. But then just for kicks, I said, hey, I'm a big fan of The Simpsons. Can you make it Simpson style? And then I said, can you make it South Park style?
They, at least you didn't have extra fingers.
Exactly. And like I mentioned with legalese, here's a really good one. My daughter's leasing an off-campus apartment. So I said, hey, here is the lease. I uploaded the PDF. Tell me if there's anything that I should be worried about. Now, because the file had a lot of different formats, it couldn't do it, but I would just went ahead and copied and pasted the main points, and it was able to tell me in plain English what to worry about or what not to worry about. I'm going to stop now and open it up for questions while I take a sip of water.
So kind of basing it off of what Steve had said that he sometimes uses a Copilot for, which is he was talking about getting formulas and SQL code. Would you expect to use a new chat each time you want to do something simple like that? Like just asking for what is VLOOKUP within Excel or something to that extent. Or just keep rolling through in the same chat no matter what.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Let me do 2 steps. So the first one is that when you are dealing with something like Excel or Word or PowerPoint, so in this case, any sort of Microsoft application that has native integration with Copilot, you can sort of wait for the app to give you suggestions, or you can ask specifics. So for example, I could start just this presentation that I shared today. I could have easily just told Copilot, hey, look, I need a 10-slide, 30-minute presentation describing an AI and cover these main things. And it would have done that for me. Now, of course, I'm presenting and I want to talk about usage models that I'm familiar with, so I wouldn't just go with that. I would say that I would need to fine tune it. When I'm writing something in Word, I can ask Copilot, help me draft it. Here's 3 things. Or I can say, look, I've done all of this. Help me better understand what is the reading level that I've employed. Excel behaves a little bit differently. So for example, if I had asked Excel, I'm on Excel, I have a graph, and I ask Excel, hey, can you help me streamline the graph or blah, 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 it would give me ideas, but it wouldn't do it for me. It still has some limitations. If I'm on Excel and I'm stuck on a particular formula and I can't get it to work, I could tell Copilot, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I know that there's a formula. I just can't figure out the syntax for the life of me. Help me do it. And it'll do a couple things. One is it'll tell you how to do it. It'll say, here's the formula that you're using. Here's the issue. And I'll go ahead and do it for you. Some work a little bit better than others. So of course, there's a big difference between, I don't know, you want to do concatenate function and you don't remember the parameters, or you want to consolidate 5 different pivot tables. That one's going to be a little bit more complex. It's going to be used by case by case, step by step, which is an important thing. Doing step by step kind of helps you. You would not need to have a new chat. So what you were seeing when I was sharing Copilot was different chats, and I could keep the conversation going just like you would with a Teams conversation if you use Teams, or a Slack conversation if you use Slack, right? You can go back to it and it'll remember. That's the beauty of it. It can, if you have 3 different conversations going on, it knows that they are separate, and it knows that even you were just asking 10 things about conversation 1. If all of a sudden you go to conversation 2 and then you go back to 1, it's not going to mix up the answer that it's giving for 1 and 2. It knows each is a separate sort of thread. It's probably an overly simplified explanation, but you kind of get the drift there.
Yeah, fair.
Other thoughts, other comments, questions?
I have a question. If I were to upload, say, a paper I wrote in college, so that would it learn my writing style? So when I ask it for summaries or outlines in the future, it would write it in my style?
That is a great question. I personally don't yet have a lot of experience with that. I would tell you that yes, in addition to doing that, it would also get to know what kind of summaries you're looking for. So if, for example, you are reading 10 business books and you write down all of your notes and you want each business book to be the main points to be captured in one page with bullet points, it'll know that by the second or third or fourth time that you ask something like that, it's going to say, you probably want this format that you've been telling me about, which is dot, 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 one page, bullet points, font 12, Arial.
Nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
might not be relevant to this, but I've always been curious about the amount of computing power and energy it takes to do all of this for everybody, and how sustainable is that, but how fast it's growing.
Yeah, and I know it's a lot. Now, to actually tell you, there was a very humorous yet somewhat tragic article a while back that essentially said that when we are too kind to AI, it burns additional power. So, for example, if you include something like thank you after each AI response, or if you give it good feedback like, wow, that's an amazing response, or great job, or blah, 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 that is, at the end of the day, it's counting bytes, right? And that does add up as AI tries to figure out, okay, is there something that he's asking me to do? And it's going through the language and says, nope, it's just telling me thank you. And then it picks up, oh, the next sentence is a request. So hopefully that won't mean the end of good manners as we know them, but it is something to keep in mind.
I've always wondered what Alexa thinks when we yell at her.
Exactly. Exactly. And yes, Mufaro, it was a bit disturbing. My cat was not happy, although, again, it was a short ride and he was able to breathe and all that. So. I see Timothy talking about writing a requirements doc. Yes, absolutely. And making sure there's no PHI. And by the way, remember I mentioned earlier that we have our homegrown ChatGPT like clone at CES Health. It knows that if I paste something that is PHI, it will not save it. It will not display it. It'll flag it. It'll say, Tony, you uploaded this and you can't do that. Or it'll say, hey, you uploaded this file that has 1,000 rows and 10 columns. The 10th column is, let's call it social security number. So you can't use that one. It'll be smart enough to do that.
Ooh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I want that.
Yeah. Brand, you mentioned it before. You used it for a funny out of office message. Yeah, pray tell, what was the funny message?
It was along the lines of I was going on a quest for peace of mind and quality of life, and I was going to battle the dreaded email box with an out of office message or something like that. It turned the I'm going to be out of the office and this is my quest for you not to bother me kind of a thing.
Outstanding. Love it. Love it.
cracked me up.
Yep.
I had one that said, if you have a question, try yelling it out into the void. Otherwise, I'll get back to you on, whatever day.
There was. Okay, the exact wording is greeting travelers. I've embarked on a noble quest to slay the inbox dragon and recover the lost scrolls of relaxation. I will return to the kingdom, aka the office, on 7/14. Until then, your message shall remain in the enchanted vault of unread emails. May your tea be strong and your meeting short.
Outstanding.
Thank you, AI, for helping me be a smart aleck.
Perfect.
All righty. Well, any other questions? Any other thoughts? I see Timothy, you replied to the question out of the Babok study group, which is something that we on the board have had conversations about recently. So, Bob, if you want to expand on that one.
Yeah, we are looking at potentially just breaking that into pieces. When we pitched it out earlier this year, we only got a few people that were interested. It wasn't really worth it going forward with 2 or 3 people. So this time around, we want to make sure that we get the word out early. We want to make sure we have enough people that are interested. So we're looking at various options, but the first thing is just to kind of see who's interested. Obviously, if it's a group of 1 or 2, they could almost kind of self-study. So that's why. So if there are other people that are interested, you can send an email over to our education VP. I'll put her email in the chat. And we just want to start collecting names and get an idea of, if we're going to go forward with this, that we have enough people that will be part of the group.
Yeah, thanks,
So
Bob,
I'm
for
just
doing that.
typing that email in.
Got quiet. Are we still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
I am not a cricket.
Can you guys see my screen?
This is
Yes.
Okay.
the Sacramento Valley IIBA July event.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, I got kicked off for a minute there.
All right. Well, if anyone doesn't have any other questions for Tony, thank you again, Tony, for saving the day.
Anytime.
Right, absolutely. Thank you.
This is great content. We haven't had any, AI content this year yet, so I appreciate that. I find it fascinating. So every day I'm trying something new without getting into trouble. But we're gonna have a quiz. If you can go to menti.com on your phone, tablet, whatever, type in this code. I'll go to the next slide here. You can get started. I apologize for the music. There's not many choices. It's better than silence. So 5 questions all about AI. You get points for getting it right. You get points for answering fast. About 20 people on the call. I'll give it a minute for 1 or 2 minutes. We'll be in a minute.
Steve, I can barely hear you over the music.
Ah, okay. We'll just get going then. never too late to join. All right, great. We have a $25 Amazon gift card on its way to you.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm sure the Amazon AI will help me use it.
Buy this.
So I went into Copilot and I said, give me like 20 simple, fun, multiple choice questions for people that are new to AI. And then I got to pick from those.